Listen to the complete season ad-free by subscribing to Curious Cast Discovery exclusively on Apple Podcasts.
It's March 1977, and we're on Brigham Young University campus in Utah, USA. The stadium is jam-packed with some 20,000 students, teachers and locals, and they're all listening attentively to the preacher, Gordon B. Hinckley. He's a rising star in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
His heart is large and overflowing. Out of a great love for others that has come of the gospel of Jesus Christ.
The theme of his sermon is self-sacrifice, our duty to serve others.
We recently visited an old friend in southern India. We had first come to know him 12 years ago when we went to Coimbatore in response to his request.
He gives an example. A man in southern India who, despite his meagre wages, has built something in his village, something very special to help those most in need.
It is an orphanage with 45 little children, tiny babies and up to 5 years of age.
An orphanage for babies born out of wedlock, for abandoned kids with no one to care for them, for starving orphans found begging on the streets.
Unwanted by others, cast away by their parents. As my wife looked at them, lying on boards, the tears welled into her eyes.
The congregation shivers to think of those innocent souls suffering and reflect on their own comfortable homes.
On that long, recent journey around the earth,
the preacher moves on to cite other humbling examples of good living from other corners of the globe. But to one man in the congregation, the image of those little orphans in India lingers and brings to mind a Bible verse. "Whoever shall receive one of such children in my name receiveth me." And suddenly, to that man, this doesn't feel like a regular sermon anymore. It feels like a message from a far higher power.
In my thinking, that was the Lord himself. But I listened to the still small voice.
But what if that still small voice he heard had been fed a lie?
What's your name?
From Curious Cast and Blanchard House, this is Stop Rewind, The Lost Boy. I'm Emma Jane Kirby. Episode 2, A Father to the Fatherless.
Lovely breakfast, right?
Let's fast forward to 2024. We're in India, where Taj Rowland is in a noisy restaurant, holding a breakfast meeting with his long-term business partner, Christopher Raj.
You choose what you want to do, but I'll say, hey, I wouldn't.
We have been having quite a few people coming out.
Taj travels all over the world for work, but if you catch him at Salt Lake City Airport, you can bet that most of the time he'll be running for a gate marked Mumbai or Delhi. And it's no accident that most of Taj's companies are based in India.
Chris and I, we really wanted to create employment in India.
And we've done that purposely, so it kind of gives us a connection to India, and it gives me a reason to come back to India.
That's also where Taj feels like his old self. His old self, Chellamuthu, that is. Remember, that used to be his name when he was a child, before he left India. And somehow he still feels connected to that land.
There's a part of this red dirt of India that I feel like I belong to, and I don't feel foreign at all when I come to India, until I open my mouth, of course.
Which is where his Indian business partner, Christopher Raj, comes in. But Chris is much more than Taj's translator. The pair have been working together since Taj was a university student in Utah.
Of course, we understand each other today very well.
Over the years, Chris has become a kind of big brother to Taj.
In his nature, he's very loving inside and he's very soft inside. He breaks down very fast. But outside, he's very stubborn. If he says, I want to do that, he will do it.
And Taj is the first to admit he has two sides.
When I'm in the U.S., I feel very much American Pie. And so I feel very much Taj. The moment I decide that I'm going to go to India, it's like I'm changing my clothes, because it brings me back to my roots.
Or at least what he remembers, because Taj's memories are all jumbled up, with some big blanks in between.
You know, one of the things I learned about India is that every city looks exactly the same. Regardless of where you're at, be it north or south, it's all the same.
For most of his life, Taj has had this feeling that he's not where he should be, that he's somehow taken the wrong road.
Feels like home, but it's not home. So
Now Taj is determined to find out the truth about what happened to him.
He's a person who, if he wants to do something or if he wants to achieve something, he will achieve. Give him any challenge, he'll make it happen.
But to find out the truth, Taj has to slip back into his younger self, to become 7-year-old Chellamuthu again. And right now, Chellamuthu has never been more lost in his life. It's nighttime in January 1979, and somewhere in Tamil Nadu's southern India, a jeep is bumping along dirt tracks, swerving to avoid garbage bags, animals and potholes. Tossed about on the back seat is a sobbing Chellamuthu, and he's terrified.
My heart is in a knot, my throat can't speak, and I want to cry out but can't. Overwhelming fear has kicked in.
3, maybe 4 hours earlier, he was coaxed by some older boys to board a bus in his hometown. That bus then drove for miles deep into the night, and when it finally stopped, it was met by a jeep, which Chellamuthu was bundled into.
It's not even that they, took ropes and tied me down and what you see in the kidnapping things. It wasn't like that. What happens, it was a helplessness, hopelessness, because even if I did try to escape, where would I go?
There's a man driving, and he's not alone.
I can't really tell you who was there. I just can't see faces, I can't see heights or exactly who it was, but I know that I was still scared.
The jeep stops outside a small concrete compound. It seems to be in the middle of nowhere. That's when Chellamuthu's told to get out. There's a sign on the gate which Chellamuthu can't read. But what's written there will mark him for the rest of his life.
Lincoln Home for the Homeless. That's an ironic name.
Lincoln Home for the Homeless. For homeless children. An orphanage where Chellamuthu is being dumped.
It was like, I'm shut in a prison.
Once inside, Chellamuthu collapses, and exhausted from crying, he falls into a deep sleep. Orem, Utah, 1979. A Sunday morning service at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is just about to begin, and a young couple called Fred and Linda herd their two smartly dressed children into the middle pew. Both are blonde, cute preschoolers. Their father helps his elder son find the right hymn number in his hymn book, hushing the little one who's crowding in. Linda, the children's mother, looks dead tired. And no wonder. She's holding a newborn in her arms who's been fussing all night. She rocks him gently, hoping he'll stay quiet in church. As her husband looks up from settling the boys, she catches his eye, and the couple smile at each other conspiratorially. Fred squeezes Linda's elbow.
We were glad, very happy.
They have a secret that only they and God know. It's something they've long been praying for.
I trust Heavenly Father, and I prayed my heart out.
They're going to adopt another baby.
And I just knew we'd love that kid forever.
A beautiful baby girl.
I'd been waiting for years, I guess, to meet her.
Yeah, I even typed it. Oh yeah, Secretary Vance.
Not far from Fred and Linda live another Mormon couple, Stan Somerville and his wife Carol. And 1979 is going to be a big year for them as well.
79? My word.
Because this year, Stan will put into practice what he's heard preached.
Wowie.
His hour has come. Stan's a big fan of Gordon B. Hinckley, the man whose speech about the orphanage in India moved so many at Brigham Young University. Hinckley will go on to become LDS president. And that speech not only moved Stan, it became a real wake-up call.
And I really think it was the Spirit of God.
Because although Stan and his wife already have their own children, in fact, they've got 6 children, Stan's wife has always wanted to adopt a child, a disadvantaged kid from overseas, to give them a chance of a better life. But Stan's always resisted. 6 kids is quite enough for him. Until now.
You know, the way I look at that, sometimes things happen for a reason.
You see, although Hinckley's sermon never mentioned anything about adopting those poor children in India, their story's kind of stuck in Stan's head.
But a man with a great heart and a thin purse sees those tiny undernourished babies as children of God and feels a great and compelling responsibility to do something to help them.
Stan has lived a life of service, first the church, then the army, and now he works in finance. He's a manager, pretty senior actually. Basically, he's a guy who's used to order and giving orders. And he tends to think through decisions very carefully. But this time, Stan does something uncharacteristically impetuous. He finds out the contact details of the orphanage and the name of its owner, Paul Fervados. He doesn't bother checking with the LDS Church first. After all, the orphanage is independent. It isn't affiliated with the Mormons. So from his home in Utah, Stan makes a long-distance telephone call to India.
This was strictly private. And so my contact went direct to Paul.
Although not quite direct, as the orphanage doesn't have a phone.
He was an accountant for the largest cement plant. Every time I called him, I called the cement factory.
Over the crackly phone line, the two men start chatting. First about business.
It was always the cement.
Before they get down to the real business, adopting orphans.
And he said he'd be more than happy. He had some children, and so we started working.
Paul learns that Stan is keen to adopt a child, preferably a boy, aged 2 or under. And Stan learns Paul is India's first Mormon convert, who came to the faith after finding an LDS tract, a pamphlet, abandoned on a bus.
I felt Paul was very, very humble, honest. It had nothing to do with the fact that he had the same faith I did, but it made me feel good.
Now, in the 1970s, there are already a lot of rules and regulations in place concerning international adoption. That means the paperwork is cumbersome and the process is often slow. And here's Stan, just champing at the bit to help an orphan find a better life. So when he discovers that Utah is one of the very few states where you don't need to adopt through a registered adoption agency, well, it's a no-brainer for Stan. He can go direct. He'll just cut out the middleman and adopt a child independently, working only with Paul.
And I work my tail off. I send a lot of money.
Several long-distance phone calls to that cement factory follow, and scores of letters and cables and checks are sent to the orphanage.
He was very, very kind, congenial. He couldn't say enough about thanking me. I really liked him. I talked to him a lot. He runs this orphanage and he's just trying to do the best for the children.
Stan's convinced. The couple push full steam ahead with the adoption of a 2-year-old boy. And as they wait for the paperwork to go through, Stan's so excited he can't help but call a few fellow parishioners to tell them all about Paul and his orphanage, about the wonderful work he's doing in India. And one of the calls Stan makes is to Fred and Linda.
This friend of my husband's, he said, I'm getting a boy. I'm getting a boy and he's coming soon. Come on, let's get some of these kids out of India.
Now, Linda's a busy lady. She teaches sport at Brigham Young University, juggles her young family, and keeps home for her husband. Fred is an athletics coach and a biology teacher at a local high school. A few years into their marriage, Linda and Fred found out they couldn't have children of their own. So the couple know lots about adoption, because all of their 3 sons are adopted, domestic adoptions from different US states. Rux, their eldest, is 6. Joshua's a preschooler, and their new baby boy's called Jerem. But despite their new arrival, when Stan calls Linda about that orphanage in India, she's immediately interested.
Because I wanted a girl. Right from the beginning, I wanted a girl.
And now, here's her chance.
I called the guy at the orphanage and talked to him, and he said, you know, I've got some beautiful children. And I told him I wanted a girl, and he said, okay, and bragged about his kids.
Paul tells the excited couple that he has several baby girls in his orphanage. But he also warns them the international adoption process takes time, much longer than domestic adoptions.
At that time, I don't think he had decided which child he was going to send because he knew I wanted a girl.
Then the communication slows down. Now remember, this is the late 1970s, long before the internet or cell phones were invented. And when making a long-distance call from the States to a developing country is a pretty hit-and-miss affair. So contact between the couple and Paul is patchy. But Fred and Linda sit tight and wait for a letter from Paul.
We just believed him, you know, because he seemed like a nice man.
The weeks, then the months go by. Until one day, the mailman rings Linda and Fred's doorbell. And he's holding out an envelope. An envelope with the distinctive red and blue chevron edging of an airmail letter, with an Indian stamp. And the return address on the back of the envelope reads, Lincoln Home for Homeless Children. Linda rips it open. She scans the letter at top speed. Lincoln Home, she reads, is an orphanage which grants asylum to destitute, abandoned, parentless, orphaned children and foundlings on humanitarian grounds. And it goes on to say that she and Fred have been matched with an abandoned and destitute minor. Attached to the letter, there's a small black and white photograph of a chubby-cheeked, serious-looking small child.
He's just a cute little boy. I said, what happened to the girl? I want a girl.
Linda and Fred tear through Paul's letter. The girl, he writes, is sadly no longer available, for which he apologizes. But he's writing in the hope that they might consider taking an orphan boy instead. A very special little boy who's only recently arrived at the orphanage.
Well, we didn't want that. We wanted a baby.
On the back of the photograph, Paul has written the child's name. Chellamuthu. It's been weeks, months perhaps, since Chellamuthu was kidnapped from the bus station in his hometown. Months since he's seen his family. So now, Lincoln Home for Homeless Children has become home. Well, not his home exactly, but it's all he has.
I got to a point where it's survival mode, right? And that's where I was. I was in survival mode.
He spends hours sitting in the courtyard by the locked gates, thinking.
I've been alone for so long. I needed somebody who could console me and be with me, to live it with me, and I didn't have that.
Chellamuthu begins to shut down. He even stops crying.
And I'm telling you, I was dead emotionally.
There are few playmates for Chellamuthu at the orphanage. At 7, maybe even 8 now, he's pretty much the oldest child there. Most of the orphans are babies or toddlers. Sometimes Chellamuthu helps care for them. It reminds him of happier times, when he used to watch over his little sister and his baby brother.
And so I found, because I was used to a newborn, I found myself kind of spending a lot of time with, small children. Baby crying or something, I would hold them, or play with the little 2, 3, 4-year-olds.
Occasionally, Chellamuthu spots boys his own age, but he can't play with them.
Across the street, there was a small school, and so we were able to see other kids. Of course, we weren't allowed to go there.
Chellamuthu and his fellow orphans are taught inside the compound.
There was singing songs and trying to learn English, a couple of words that we were taught. So was it a formal school? I don't think so, but there was some education or training that was occurring inside the compound.
Chellamuthu's desperately homesick and lonely. There's just one person he likes to be with, the orphanage owner, Paul Thurvados.
I was able to just kind of tag along with him, and, I can't do anything else.
Even today, Taj's memory of Paul Thurvados is extremely sharp.
I remember his big glasses, big black pair of glasses, reading glasses that he used to have. I know he was married. He was short in stature, and he had a car, which was a big thing. I don't ever remember anybody having a car. So I knew that he was, somewhat well off.
And Paul takes Chellamuthu under his wing.
He was kind. I was fed. When you give food to somebody, is that kindness? Well, I didn't have it. So, yeah, to me, that was kindness. So there was a little bit of a bond created with the orphanage owner because of security.
Chellamuthu is Hindu, but Paul teaches him Christian songs.
It was a Christian orphanage. There was Christian songs. It wasn't specifically Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints or Mormons. I think it was just more Christian-based, sing a song. It wasn't to indoctrinate. I don't recall praying.
Chellamuthu's in despair, so he finds zero comfort in any god or creed.
I don't recall praying to anybody specific or anything specific, but did I wish and beg and hope that I can go and find my family or return home? If that's a form of offering a prayer, I'm certain I gave that multiple times.
Because the thing is, Chellamuthu's not sure why he's been brought here. He's still hoping someone will come and get him and take him home.
You know, the concept of orphanage, I don't think I understood the orphanage concept. However, I knew it was an area where children were coming and children were going.
Because as well as new kids arriving, some also leave to new families, foreign families. Now, Chellamuthu's kidnappers had warned him to keep quiet about his family. Remember, they threatened to beat him if he told anyone at Lincoln Home that he wasn't an orphan. But Chellamuthu takes the risk. He confides in Paul Theodoros.
Oh yeah, he knew that I had a family, and because I was old enough to speak.
Chellamuthu tells Paul about his mother, Arai, about his father, his brothers and his sister, and then he tells him about what happened, about being made to get on a bus by those older boys.
He knew that I wanted to leave that place. So did I tell Paul? I'm certain, 100% certain I did. Did Paul understand that I was abducted? I'm certain that he got a sense that I was brought there without consent.
So Chellamuthu waits for Paul to help him, to take him back home. But nothing happens.
What's he supposed to do? How can he help this child return? He may have been also at a loss of how to help Chellamuthu.
Because Chellamuthu has no idea where he lives, so he can't give Paul his home address.
I don't know the name of the city, and so even if the orphanage wanted to help, they were lost. And so it's difficult for me to fault the orphanage.
Without the name of a town or a city to go on, Paul can't even begin to help Chellamuthu. I mean, this is 1970s rural India. There's no missing kids hotline. There's barely any social services. So the orphanage owner decides to do what he believes is the next best thing. He's going to try to find Chellamuthu a new home, far away, in the land of plenty.
The picture that was painted is the dream of dreams, right? But that story was sold that we're going to go to a much better place. You're up next, kind of a thing.
The problem is, Chellamuthu doesn't buy the dream, and he doesn't want to be up next.
My heart or brain doesn't even care about that. Everything is telling you you don't want to be there. But there was that helplessness that I had that I couldn't alter or change the situation I was in.
There's only one thing Chellamuthu cares about.
I wanted to go back home.
And one day, opportunity knocks in the form of construction workers. Chellamuthu's standing despondent in the courtyard, watching the men build a wall. And then suddenly he sees the workers have left the gates open. Wide open. Chellamuthu doesn't hesitate. He slips out of the compound, past Paul Theodoros' house, and walks stealthily onto the road.
The orphanage was in a kind of a remote area where there's no shops. There was really not much.
Chellamuthu searches for someone who might help him. But there's no one around. Only the birds and the burning hot sun. There are steep hills on either side of the compound, scrubland with spiky plants and spiny bushes. Chellamuthu is barefoot.
Okay, I escaped the walls, but where am I going?
He begins to scramble through the thicket, cautiously picking his way. Then, once he's out of sight of the orphanage, Chellamuthu begins to run.
Dear Paul, sorry for the delay in answering your letter. We have indeed had a soul-searching experience these past few days.
Back in Utah, Fred and Linda are mourning the little girl Paul had promised them. Linda writes to him of her pain.
Brother Paul, we wanted a beautiful baby girl to make our family complete. Upon receiving your letter, therefore, we were a little disappointed.
So that's where the couple's story with Paul and with Lincoln Home for Homeless Children should have ended. But the problem is, they've still got that photograph, the headshot of the serious, chubby-cheeked little boy Paul sent them. And there's just something about that child that makes Linda's heart bleed.
Here's this darling little boy, and that was awfully hard to just rip up and throw away. I mean, you just can't do that.
Chellamuthu stares at them from the picture. He looks so wise for his tender age, and it seems to Linda like he's pleading.
I think Paul knew exactly what he was doing. He kept saying, this boy is special. This boy is special.
Call it emotional blackmail, but it worked. The couple have fallen head over heels for Chellamuthu.
We couldn't turn him down. Couldn't turn him down.
So Fred and Linda put their faith in God.
We have decided to leave it in the hands of the Lord, that through you, His will be done. If under the circumstances you feel Chellamuthu should still come into our home for time and all eternity, would you please inform us as to your decision?
And they put their trust in Paul Thervados.
And in general health. It is somewhat ironic to have such faith, respect, and admiration for a man living thousands of miles away. Thank you for all that you have done and are about to do in our behalf.
They just want one thing clarified first. Chellamuthu's age. Paul's reply comes quickly this time, by cable.
Chellamuthu, he's 3 or 4.
So Linda and Fred sign on the dotted line.
And may your decision be a blessing to all of us. Sincerely, Mr. and Mrs. Fred Rowland.
They're ecstatic. Chellamuthu will soon be part of their family. But of course, Chellamuthu's not 3 or 4. He's at least twice that. And he already has a family. What's more, Chellamuthu's no longer at the orphanage. He's run away. Because if no one will help him, he's going to find his own way home. You've been listening to Stop Rewind, The Lost Boy, a Blanchard House production for Curious Cast. It's hosted, written and produced by me, Emma Jane Kirby, with additional production by Himat Shalagram. Stop Rewind, The Lost Boy is inspired by the book The Orphan Keeper by Cameron Wright. Audio of Gordon B. Hinckley is from the address entitled Forget Yourself, given by Hinckley at Brigham Young University in 1977 from Intellectual Reserve Incorporated. We'd like to make it clear that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has never promoted or facilitated the adoption of children from Paul Thervados' orphanage, Lincoln Home for Homeless Children. On the Ground interpreting by Smita TK. Additional research by Catherine Gillon. Original music by Toby Matamong, Louis Nankmanel and Daniel Lloyd Evans. Sound design and mix engineering by Volkan Kiseltuk, Daniel Lloyd Evans, Toby Matamong and Louis Nankmanel. Post-production supervised by Daniel Lloyd Evans. The creative director of Blanchard House is Rosie Pye. The head of content at Blanchard House is Lawrence Grizel. For Blanchard House, the executive producers are Amika Shortino-Nolan and Lawrence Grizel. For Curious Cast, the executive producers are Dida Velasquez and Chris Duncombe.